Welcome, listeners. Today I have for you a very special episode. I am bringing a new guest to your ears, an absolute veteran of the narration scene, and a voice that is somehow relaxing yet still able to sneak under your skin and give you a chill. I bring you Insomniac. He is my special guest, and please welcome him with open arms, mates. Because he's not only a great narrator but a top bloke. It was a pleasure working with him on this one. And just through communications alone, I could tell how passionate he was about narration and creepy tales. There's going to be 8 tales shared by our wonderful narrator, and 4 from myself. Our topic this evening is Let's Not Meet Stories, and Close Encounter Stories. So turn the lights off, the sound up. Lock your doors, and get ready for something unique.
I work at a retail store, and I detest my job with all my heart, and because I was stupid and said I am always available, they routinely mess me over putting me on nights. I moan and digress though. I'm okay working nights since I get to see my boyfriend when he picks me up. My boyfriend usually gets off at 10:30, but he doesn't leave until 11, so most nights I'd have to wait. On top of that, he has to make a 10-minute drive, so I potentially have to wait an hour or maybe 40 minutes, but that didn't bother me. He'd call me and tell me he was coming and make sure I'm still alive. Earlier in the week, an Uber driver kept asking me if I was someone named Lenore. I told him no, but he did it again and again, this time asking if I was sure. How am I not sure of my name? Fortunately, my boyfriend pulled in and honked at me, causing the weird Uber driver to speed away. I'm a paranoid penny, so this made me wonder if he'd been watching me and knew my boyfriend always came late. And then I tweaked out that since I kept getting these weird phone calls from some weird telemarketing agency, but when I answered no one is there and they hang up. Is it connected? I don't know. Fast forward 3 days later, and I'm standing here listening to some music waiting for him to pick me up or call. He finally does, and he starts cracking a joke about how he's glad the creepy Uber guy didn't answer. As we start talking and joking, this woman comes up. I don't hear her at first as I have noise cancelling headphones. She gets closer and keeps calling to me yelling hey. I look over at her and smile and then go back to texting. She does it again. I say hi, can I help? Do you need a ride? She says, and she looks. Seems nice enough, but something didn't settle with me. Her car is parked at the stop sign and there's no one else in it. No, my friend is coming to thank you. I notice there's a man in the driver's seat and that she isn't wearing a uniform from either the store or us. She begins to ask again, are you sure? I can give a ride. Do you need one? Get in. Do you need a ride? I begin to feel a little uncomfortable and my preschool doesn't get in as stranger's training kicks in, so I politely decline. I say to my boyfriend, are you close? Just pulled out, I'll get there. Just down the line, is a woman gone? No, she wasn't gone, in fact, she's standing 6 feet away from me. And she looks annoyed. I told him in code that no, she's not left. She has in fact remained there, leaning on the car, just watching me. And she is looking angrier with every passing moment. Out of the corner of my eye, I tell the man tell her something and she looks very annoyed at me. Friend's not here, do you need a ride? We're friend, he probably forgot you. That's okay, we give ride. It's cold, get in, tell us where you live. At this point, she begins getting closer to me. I try to avoid her by moving to the other end of the plaza strip. Honey? So, yeah. What about my sister? Well, she's gotten closer, but I'm pretty scared. She's too far away from here. Something might happen. Hurry up so I can tell you. I say in code as a car drives up. Now she looks annoyed. Get in the car now. We give you ride. Get in. At this point, she opens the car and begins trying to get me inside, pulling me, yanking me on my jacket. She's taller, so tries picking me up. At this point, I'm screaming and kicking, wiggling away. Meanwhile, I can hear him yelling at me that he's coming, and now he's called the police. Now my mind is running 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm panicking, thinking that I'm gonna get abducted for this weird husband of hers, since he looks content with her effort to kidnap me. Get in, I'll hit you, she says. I start crying as she manages to get my torso in the car. My right hand is locked on my phone as she begins trying to make it. But my boyfriend is panicking, telling me the police are sending an officer. She shoves my face into the seat. Now my airway is obstructed and she's not letting go. She's bigger than me and stronger and knows it. Her whole weight's on me. I'm trying to not panic so I don't black out from lack of air. Her husband saying something in Punjabi, and she lifts one hand up and leans down, trying to get something from the front. I immediately use the arms I've been using to push myself off the seat and stabbing her in the stomach. She recoils, letting go of me a little, and I headbutt her torso. I'm really scared, but finally my boyfriend pulls in. I manage to get away, bolt into his car, and the Indian woman is now sitting on the ground. After I shut the door, he speeds off towards her house. When I get in, I break down, babbling about how scared and terrifying it all is, and how if he hadn't come, God knows what would have happened. After this incident, the police officer he dispatched got there more than 20 minutes after and can't find anyone. My boyfriend talks to the boss and he was granted the ability to leave early for me. I'm still weirded out by the car stolen in the plaza. I was also a little upset that my war cry was a line from the King of Hill. I'm just glad I'm safe now.
A rest stop for the night. Forgive me for the horrible formatting. I am doing this on a new tablet. I've been addicted to reading these stories and needed to create an account to submit this story. About 3 weeks ago, my mum told my brother and I this story. Straight up gave me the yucky feeling. Sally was a lifelong family friend. Sally would frequently visit her friends and family in Oklahoma. We live in a small town in southern Ontario, Canada. Sally would drive. Sally would drive straight, 20 hours at least, overnight, to get from our town to another town. She did this simply to save money, and obviously wanted to arrive as soon as she could. Now that you got my prelude, here is the story. About 30 years ago, she decided to head south on a visit. No big deal, she's done this a few times. So she packs up and heads out. At some point after driving about 4 to 15 hours, she started getting pretty tired. Being as it was probably the 80s, it was a little safer. She decided that she would stop at a rest stop. It was more of a traveler's stop, my mum said, to sleep for a little bit and resume her drive first thing in the AM. She parks in a very well-lit and busy rest stop. She parks right by the lights and felt at ease because there were an abundance of travelers stopping and going. She gets out for a bathroom break, comes back and settles in her car. About then, an RV pulls up beside her, and elderly couple get out. The man asks her about coming from Canada. They strike up a little conversation. Nothing odd. The couple talk to Sally for a bit. They tell her they are driving from the south, going north, and just needed to have a sleep for the night. They wanted to talk because they were unsure if a rest stop was okay to stop at, but seeing Sally, they were at ease. They say goodnight and good trip, and the couple went back in their RV. Sally locked her doors up and went to sleep. 2/3 of an hour later, Sally woke up with a really unsettling feeling. She looks around. Nothing. A few people going in the stop. Parking lights are all on. She assumes she is feeling bad because she's tired and a car isn't the best to sleep in. After 10 minutes, she said that this feeling actually got worse, and it was a jarring, queasy, uneasy feeling. She sits back and tries to shrug it off. This didn't work, and apparently she had every red alarm and instinct telling her that she needed to go. She panics, starts her car and peels off. She doesn't care where. She just knew she had to get away from there. So about 20 miles down the road, she finds a motel and gas station / restaurant stop. She decides to see if she could get a room for what little money she had. She converses with the person in charge. He cuts her a deal, and he doesn't want a young woman driving alone at night. She gets a key, pops in her hotel room, and sleeps for the night. No issues, all in peace. Around 9 a.m., she wakes up, showers, changes clothes, and decides to relax for a few. She turned on the TV, and what was on it actually gave me chills. There was a breaking news story about an elderly couple killed in the middle of the night. The news shows the RV that Sally was parked next to, exact spot, exact rest stop, and she sees the fast food drink cup she dropped on accident that rolled under her car. Sometime during the night, a man broke into their RV and killed them, then left. Presumably right before Sally had left. The man was never caught. Sally, since then, stopped at hotels for the night and avoided rest stops.
This is a story my grandmother would tell me when she was trying to put the fear of God into me. Honestly. When she's about 30 years old, she went to a major city for a business meeting. I can't remember the specific city, but I believe it is New York, with a huge amount of taxis and whatnot. She was supposed to meet someone at another destination and had the hotel call a taxi. She went outside to wait. She saw a taxi already outside, assuming it was hers, hopping in. She didn't notice anything special about the taxi, telling the driver the address, and off they went. For about 10 minutes she didn't notice they were going a weird way. After 15 minutes she started getting worried, asking the driver where they're going. At this point, they're out of the major city, and she realizes what kind of situation she's in. She tried talking to the driver, but he never spoke a word to her. She notices they're getting closer to a dodgy hotel and made a decision. She noticed he never locks the doors, probably thinking she wouldn't jump out of a moving car. Wrong. He didn't know my grandmother was bad. She tucked her legs in, opens the door, and rolled out. She ran as fast as she could and hid. She saw him go up and down the road a couple of times and eventually leave. When he finally left, she walked down the road to another hotel. She walked in, asking to use their phone. They actually said no, then she demanded to. Eventually they let her use the phone. She called whoever she's supposed to meet and told them where she was and to bring police. They came and she filled out a report and left. The aftermath is that the police raided the hotel and found out it's actually a kidnap house where they forced women to do things. She stayed in the same city where she was kidnapped in and finished her work. I once met up with an old friend of mine. A friend I'd known for a few years prior to meeting up in November 2017. I had actually met this person on a date site. However, as time went on, the relationship between us became strictly a normal one. There were no red flags. My gut did not warn me, so I completely trusted this person. We met up in town, behind a bus station on a grassy hill surrounded by trees and a tall wall. Our meeting was just to smoke and catch up. The meetup was fine. I had actually started a few months before, so I was relatively new to it. He had brought some new types for me to try out. We spoke about random things, about work, random stuff. About half an hour later, I started feeling very lightheaded and anxious. I suddenly had this strange feeling where I did not feel comfortable at all and really wanted to go home. When I asked him if I could go home, he offers to take me, but I said no. It's okay. He offers again. Please let me take you home. You'll be safe with me, I'm not gonna hurt you. I shook my head and said no thank you, I can take myself. When I started to walk away, I felt like I was walking on a cloud and my head became dizzy, eyesight blurry, but I never felt like this before and I started to panic. We made our way downhill and towards a bus station, and I'm relieved, as there's a lot of people around, so if anything happened, someone would step in. I become terrified of him. I had this horrible feeling in my gut that told me I have to get away from him, and when I got to the bus station, I told him I would call my taxi here and go home. His tone was no longer nice but very stern. I'm gonna take you home now. And he began to pull at my jacket. I told him no, that I was gonna make my own way. He pulls my jacket harder and I fell against him. He pulls me into him and told me not to be afraid. I was so terrified at this point. I feel very paranoid and can't see properly. I push him away, rubbing my eyes, calling for a taxi. He tried to pull my phone from me and yell in my face, "Do you ever listen? I'm taking you home." I noticed a few people had stopped to ask if I was okay. All I remember was saying that I want to go home. So a lady kindly calls a taxi for me and waits with me, making sure I'm okay, helping me into the taxi. During the time when I waited for the taxi, he kept trying to get me to come to his car with him, but the lady that looked after me told him to go home and that she was going to take me instead, so he left. When I got home, I gave the taxi driver money and told him to keep the change. I didn't want to wait around. I just wanted to get into my bed because at the time, it was the only place I'd be safe from harm. That evening, I laid in bed for 5 hours straight, staring at the ceiling. I don't remember if I thought about anything, or if my mum came in at any time. I just remembered lying in bed, doing nothing until the paranoia wore off. I remember looking at my phone and seeing I had 32 missed calls from him, 10 voicemails and 50 messages. The messages are weird. He sent around 20 messages just asking where I was and when I got home. One is a voicemail with him saying these weird fantasies about drugging me up. I couldn't listen to the rest. I blocked him on everything, but made sure to call the police first. I've heard nothing from him for over a month, until recently I've received a text on an unknown number asking how I was. Now I hadn't given my number to anyone, so ignore it. I then received another message a few minutes later, saying they miss me, that they'd see me soon. I ask who they are, and I get no reply. I've never heard anything since, so I hope I never see him again.
Close encounter with a serial killer on a highway rest stop. This encounter happened in the summer of 2006, when I was 20 years old. I didn't get my driver's license until January of that year, and driving opened up so many doors for me that I took a lot of solo road trips to my friend's house in New England and mid-Atlantic states. I also look young for my age and was often mistaken for a high school student in my early 20s. I was driving alone on I-78 on a random July day, on my way to visit my friend in southern PA for a long weekend. Her parents were away and we had the house to ourselves, and were planning on drinking, hot tubbing, and watching Planet Earth drunk. It had just come out. Maybe run around some cornfields at night. I was so excited and had a great drive, listening to good music, and it was a beautiful day for driving. Right after I crossed the border from New Jersey into Pennsylvania, I stopped at one of the first rest stops to get gas and snacks for the last part of my drive. I have tried to figure out which rest stop this was, and I can't ID it, but it was a gas station with a large mini-mart. Opposite the gas station was the on-ramp back to I-78 West, and parallel to the on-ramp was a dirt road which comes into play later. I was heading into the store when a man in his late 30s or early 40s approached me. He was a stocky guy, decently tall, I'm 5'1", had on a plain black tee and jeans with dark brown hair, and moustache and goatee. He had come out of a black pickup truck, parked a few spaces away from my car. He had a super intense gaze, and immediately creeped me out. He just had a crazy energy about him. I don't really get vibes from people that often, but this was so strange. He stood too close, his gaze was crazy direct and focused. His word choice was strange. Immediately set off all my alarms. He asked if I was from the area, despite my Connecticut license plate, where I was headed and if I knew of anything fun to do, because he had plans later and time to kill beforehand. He invited me to go play mini-golf or watch a movie with him. I didn't answer any of his questions, declined his invitation to hang out, and told him I didn't know the area, and walked away towards the store. I was blown away he asked me to go somewhere with him. It was so random and uncomfortable. As I was walking away, he actually screamed out, "You're gorgeous!" And the volume and tone made my hair stand on end. It was super aggressive and inappropriate. And he startled a family walking out of the store. It was so loud. I didn't turn around but went inside. He came into the store shortly after and was staring at me. So I went to use the bathroom and stayed in for at least 10 minutes, texting my friend about this creep. When I came out, he wasn't in the store anymore, so I took my time buying drinks and snacks, sour bright crawlers and trail mix being my obligatory road trip food, and went out to gas up my car. I was relieved his car was gone, and started thinking about the rest of my drive and getting excited to see my friend. When I pulled up on the road to get back to the highway, I hear someone persistently honking his horn, and see this creep show on the dirt road, parallel to the on-ramp in his truck, honking, shouting and waving at me to drive over to him. He was directly facing the gas station, and he had been waiting for me to pull up. I immediately freaked out and jumped on the on-ramp back onto I-78. He pulled onto the highway after me, and I called my friend extremely scared. I drove so fast and probably dangerously, and looking back, am lucky that I didn't get into an accident, but I didn't know what to do. He didn't follow me for that long, and I think after a few exits, he pulled off. My friend and I had a backup plan that if I saw his car again, she would direct me to a police station the next town over from her house, instead of going directly there, and leading some freak to us. I didn't see the car again, and went to my friend's, but the last hours of my drive, I was extremely tense and anxious. I remember checking my mirrors regularly for this black pickup truck. It all ended well. I got to my friend's house safely, and we had a nice weekend. The encounter was definitely creepy, but over the years, I didn't put much thought into it. A few years ago, 2014, I was talking with another friend who was big into serial killers, and mentioned my encounter, jokingly suggesting this was a serial killer. I had met and told her my experience. She was fascinated, and wanted to Google active serial killers in the Pennsylvania area at the time. The first hit was for Adam Leroy Lane, and he looked almost exactly like the man I met back in 2006. Obviously, it could be my mind filling in the blanks, but the basic characteristics: 40s, tall but stocky, brown hair with mustache and goatee, and the time, area all match. In my memory, he was a little bit slimmer than the picture, and it was 2006, not 2007, when he was actually convicted of murdering women. Still, it's an odd coincidence, and one I've never forgotten.
This happened earlier last year, and still messes me up thinking about it. For a little backstory, I'm a delivery driver for a certain foods company, and have been doing so as a side gig for the past year or so to earn extra money. I'm also female. Anyway, yeah, it's a super chill job. Although the pay is definitely not ideal, especially at night. Normally, any pings I get after 10 PM are just crappy fast food orders to customers who are just there, just out of their mind, drunk normally. Anyway, late night deliveries are already profitable through tips, which is why I barely do them. I, however, on this night last year, find there's a bonus going on. Reach 15 deliveries in a certain time and get an extra $75. Music to my ears. Well, that's the case. Late night deliveries rock because there's no traffic, and it doesn't matter when you're picking stuff up. The faster you can get them done, the faster you can go home and knock out. Open roads all the way for me. I was on a roll and finished my last McD's run at 2:30 in the morning, cash my bonus and call it a night. For context, this took place in downtown San Diego. Downtown SD has fun restaurants and clubs at the core, but as you branch out, it gets more seedy. Once you get past 16th Street, it gets hella shady. Lots of homeless. The works. I actively try and avoid the area, but in order to get back home and on the freeway, I have to pass through the neighborhood. One more piece of information: I drive a crappy old Ford and nothing's automatic. In order to roll down the window, you have to crank the lever. Because it's a hassle to roll them up and down manually each time, when I do deliveries, I just keep both my windows rolled down because it's easier to pick up / deliver through the windows. This night, I had my windows down as usual. I was planning to roll them up before I passed 16th Street, where the homeless camp was, but didn't get that far. As I turned down a side street heading towards the main drag, up ahead I see a man in one of those orange reflective construction vests standing on the side of the road. There's always some sort of construction going on downtown, and it's pretty common for it to happen at night, so I didn't really pay much attention. As I get closer though, the man stops in the middle of the street waving his arms. I begin slowing down, thinking that he's going to direct traffic or something. I brake to 10, then 5, leaving distance trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. He breaks out into a jog towards my car, stopping directly in front of it, blocking me and my car from moving forward. God, immediate unease. This is weird. I'm really wishing that my windows were done up. People are talking about fight or flight, and I've always wondered how I'd react in that situation. Now I know, my reaction is to freeze. Because as I was slowing down, it hit me 5 seconds later that I should not have. The guy's not a construction worker. He has on a hard hat and vest, but the creepiest smile I've ever seen in my life. At first I thought he was just smiling to be friendly, but smiling to acknowledge someone longer than a few seconds is not normal. Try it right now, count to 5 in your head while grinning and you'll see what I mean. Exactly what he's doing. Now that he's in front of me, I can tell he's homeless, or I don't know. He's an older guy. I guess 60s, but homelessness has a way of making everyone appear old, so who knows really, but he's just staring at me, wide-eyed smiling, all teeth. Honestly, his smile and mannerisms, the best way I can describe it is Twisty from American Horror film. Literally though, the guy looks insane. I obviously should have reversed, but my brain was panicking and I didn't think that fast. I was instead frozen in my car thinking this is how I'm gonna die. This whole time he's not saying a thing, just staring. Then like a ninja he jumps onto the hood of my car and slams his fists against my hood. I'm frozen in terror just watching this guy. He starts pounding on the hood of my car, crawling around on his hands and knees. Not saying anything, just crawling and staring at me. That was the most terrifying part. That he never breaks eye contact once during all of this, and never stops grinning. The thought of my windows being open made me want to throw up, but at the same time, breaking eye contact and moving to roll them up felt scarier. Like if I made any sudden movements or looked away, he'd try and get inside. He never says a word. I think it would have been less scary if he said something, but he didn't. Just pounded his fists on the car and stared. All in reality, this whole time, it probably lasted seconds, but felt like days. I'm freaking out, and before I can gain the sense to do anything remotely intelligent, I see headlights in my rearview mirror coming up from behind me down the street. The man sees them too, and in an instant he jumps off my car, runs from behind me towards a new car. Jesus, I floor it and don't look back until I'm halfway home on the freeway. At this point it's all adrenaline. For a long time after that I stopped delivering at night. I sure as hell don't want to go down that section of road again anymore. I take the longer route home, and I don't drive with the windows down at night if it's in an even remotely run down area. What I realised from this is how naive I can be just to go onto autopilot still with situations because someone has a uniform. Like, I didn't even question slowing down at first, even though it is a situation that is really sketchy. The opposite actually in my mind. I was confronted and confirmed by the fact that somebody trustworthy was on the road. Suspicious thoughts went by like, oh nice, a public servant doesn't want to make a wrong turn. By the time I stopped, it would have already been too late if the guy decided to attack me, and I shudder thinking about it. I calmed down eventually by reassuring myself that this is probably just a crazy guy on drugs who meant no harm. But it might not have been. The fact that this guy is dressed as a worker on the road, deliberately behaving normal at first, is the part that really scares me. I pray to God I never have a similar experience in my life. I can say though that I learnt from this one.
My sister met a killer. My sister, whom was 20 at the time, was stationed in England. She's Air Force at that time. She unknowingly had entered a very unsettling friendship with a man around the same age as her. They worked the same shifts and hung out on a regular basis. As their relationship got closer, he would start to push the boundaries more and more. One day, he had come over to her dorm and had stripped naked behind her and changed into his gym clothes. He would try to touch her and even get mad and scare away her other male friends because he was jealous. It got to the point where she would run into him in public and completely random places and wait outside her door for hours. When things started to get abusive, she told him to leave her alone. He did for a while, but then she started to get phone calls from him in the middle of the night. They were of him, heavy breathing into the phone. One night she got the call that would haunt her for life. While they were friends, he used to house sit for a family who was out of town on holiday. They had a cat who he would also watch for them. My sister had met the cat and said he was the sweetest thing. Yet her friend grew to deeply hate the poor thing out of seemingly no reason. So, this phone call. It started out with a deep breathing, and then he spoke. His voice, it was creepily calm, and he proceeded to tell her what had happened with long, slow pauses in between. He talked about how it was late, and the cat was meowing out of hunger and interrupting his TV show. He finally had it, when the kitty sat in his lap and fell asleep. He got up, grabbing a can of food, and went upstairs to the bathroom. He filled the tub with boiling water and opened the can of food. He waited for what felt like ages when he finally heard the soft chirps of the fluffy critter. He let the cat eat, and then he grabbed the helpless animal by the neck and drowned it. Later he drove to the beach and tossed it into the ocean. There was a long pause as my sister nearly drops the phone in horror. His breath started to get more heavy and he laughed before hanging up. Her biggest regret was never reporting him. She never saw him after that, and later desperately looked for him out of the sheer terror he would do it again. After asking around for a week, he was reported missing as a missing AWOL airman. Missing posters and the whole 9 yards. He's out wandering England after killing a cat. I remember reading somewhere that serial killers first kill animals and slowly work their way up to children and then adults. The first killing usually leaves a bloodlust for more and more, never to be satisfied. So, to the asshole that killed a cat, let's not meet.
I just had a creepy encounter. As soon as I got home, I had an anxiety attack and was very nauseous. I'm now calm and would like to recount what happened a few hours ago after I left work. I work at a bar in the suburb of Melbourne. This is safe during the day, but has become sort of notorious for being dodgy during the night time, specifically along this main street that my work is on. I often work in night shifts or late shifts. Today I finish at 11. For some context, I'm a 19-year-old small girl. So, I got out of work at 11 and start to walk down the street, which is quite well lit in some parts, but quite dark in others, and begin looking for a taxi to haul. I was having zero luck finding one, honestly. In fact, there are very few cars about, which is unusual. I look across the road and saw a dude with a hoodie on that was concealing a lot of his face. He looks young, in his mid to late 20s, and high on something. He seems quite shady to me, and I noticed that he's very tall but thin. I guess I looked at him for a while because he's crossed the street towards me. I stopped looking at him and start walking sort of fast down the street, looking behind me to keep my eyes on his distance and to now more desperately get in a taxi. I turn around to look at him, and to my relief, he was walking into a side street. I stepped onto the street trying to get a better view down the road when he came back from the side street. My stomach dropped as I saw he was now with 2 more guys. I start to walk really fast now, and they began to walk after me. I was walking as fast as I could without jogging. I was getting really panicked and was thinking of hauling down any car to ask for help. The 3 men are getting closer and closer and are shouting at me, but my anxiety snuck in and I didn't hear what they said. It was white noise. A taxi with its lights off drove past, and I ran out to the middle of the road. The driver said he was finished for the day and wasn't taking any more customers. I tell him I'm being followed and ask if I can sit in his car for a second to feel safe. He let me in the taxi and drove 20 meters away, telling me to get out. The men are still there. I beg him to take me out of sight a little further. He noticed how scared I was, then got all concerned and fatherly. The taxi driver was lovely and refused to let me get out of his car until we found me another to take me home. He drove around with me for a few minutes until we found one. He beeped the other car down to explain the situation. I thank him profusely. It terrifies me thinking of what them men were plotting and how vulnerable I was in the situation, that I could have easily been on my phone and completely oblivious to the danger.
Please, don't shoot me. Here's a little bit of backstory. This happened back in the fall of 2016. I was a newlywed, 18, and moved halfway across the country to live with my husband. I was in a new town and had no friends. My husband deployed in the early spring of 2016. A few months into deployment, I was lonely and wanted to head home. I decided to make the 16-hour trek home alone. I packed up my essentials and my cats. I left at 11 p.m. because I couldn't sleep. I was about 4 hours into my drive, and I was growing tired. I pulled into a well-lit public rest stop so I could catch some shut-eye. I pulled my car into a spot right under a light, and I made sure cars were nearby. It's about 3 in the morning at this time, and I fall asleep. Next thing I know, I hear a knuckle tapping on my driver's side window. Sleepily, I wake up and see an older man, about mid-40s, kneeling down to my window. Stupidly, I open my driver's side door. Man. Please, don't shoot me! Me. I won't. What do you want? Man. My wife and I are stranded here. We need money. Do you have some? We're right over here. Points to a van parked in the dark off behind him. If you want to follow me. Me? No man. I'm good. I don't have any money, I'm sorry. At this point, I'm beginning to feel like something is wrong. Man. Oh, come on. I swear I'm up to no harm. Come over to my van. My wife is in there. Me. Sorry, but I have no money. I'm using the rest of my money to go home. Man. All right, miss. God bless. God bless. With that, he stumbles off to the next car on my right to do the same thing. By now, I'm wide awake, and I'm feeling scared. I turn on my car and peel out of the lot. I don't know what he wanted. I didn't see a woman in the van he kept pointing at, but I didn't want to find out. Man in the rest stop parking lot, who most likely wanted to kidnap me? Let's not meet again.
This happened just last night, and honestly I'm still a little shaken over it. I work evenings as a dispatcher in a small medium-sized Midwestern town. I was driving home at 2 a.m. when I stopped for gas. In retrospect, it was stupid I stopped at all. The gas station was poorly lit and completely empty of any customer cars. But I knew the shady areas of town, and this was not usually one of them. As I was pumping gas, I noticed a middle-aged woman sitting on the curb across a parking lot. It's a cold night and just started raining. The woman was not wearing the weather-appropriate clothing, so drenched. When the woman saw that I was watching her, she called out to me from across the parking lot. My second moment of stupid decisions was choosing to engage with her. I was worried for her, so I approached her to see if she wants some help. Hi beautiful, I'm just trying to get home, but no one's gonna help me. I see you're a taxi driver, and I'm trying to get from city A to city B. I could really do with your help. I've been out here for ages. Can you help me? Now I don't usually give money to panhandlers, but she seems genuine. The weather was terrible, and there's lots of job centres around that are shutting down, so I agree. I tell her I don't have cash, but if she comes inside I'll give her a couple of dollars. Now, the ATM isn't working. I apologise and told her that there's nothing else I can do. She follows me back outside. idly chatting with me as I get to my driver's door. She then says, "But you're a cab driver," and gets in. I was totally shocked to really say anything. I sat there and watched as she buckles herself in like it's a completely normal situation. As soon as she got into my car, her demeanour changed. She's no longer anxious, she's now restless. "Just take me to my aunt's house, she can give you money." Of course alarm bells are going off in my head, although my first instinct is to tell her to get out of my car. My gut tells me that if she does, it's not dangerous, but she's already proved that she's unpredictable and high, and I don't know if she has a weapon. Forcing her out of my vehicle, I thought I had the potential to avoid a violent interaction. "Why are you asking me?" I finally said. "Just start driving, I'll tell you later." "No, if you want me to consider driving you, I need you to tell me where you want me to go." I never had an intention of driving her. She said, "Don't worry, honey. I'm not just one of the bad people here. I'm not going to rob you, just drive." "No," I repeat. "What's her address?" "Okay, it's Street A." "What's her house number?" As I was asking her questions, she gets agitated. We still had not left the gas station parking lot. I considered getting out of the car and going into the gas station for help, but A, she seemed to know and be friendly with the one attendant who's inside when I tried to get money, and B, I wasn't about to leave my car alone. Finally she snapped to me and said, "Why are you asking me questions? You don't trust me." I then said, "I work at the police department, it's my job," and she flips out, yelling at me, calling me a snitch, about trying to get her in trouble and just losing her darn mind. At this point, I'm more scared than ever. I just want her gone, but my instincts told me asking her to get out of my car couldn't work, so I decided to take a risk. I say, "I'm not a police officer, I just work at a police department. Why don't I take you to Walmart and see if they have ATMs at work?" My idea was to get her out of my car as peacefully as possible and get her into the store. She likes my idea and immediately calms down. I know that it's incredibly risky driving off with a stranger in the car, but it seems my best option at the time. As we're driving, she keeps asking me to take her home. Her thoughts are erratic, literally bouncing all over the place. It was really like a look into a crazy person's mind. Here's some of our conversation. "I'm glad we're friends now. I have about 6 people trying to get me. I'm gonna come to your work tomorrow so you can go arrest them together." "Okay, we can talk about that tomorrow." "You said you're trying to get home, right?" "Yeah, I'm trying to get to this city." Then I said, "I thought you needed to go to the other one." She said, "Yeah, that's what I meant. That's why the cab ride is $40 away." I said, "The cab ride is $40? She said, "Yeah." "You said you had $40. "I do, but I mean it's 60. There's now silence. "Are you sure you can't take me to my aunt's house? She lives close." "I thought you said she lived somewhere different." "No, I meant that one. But it don't matter because she won't give you the money anyway. You sure you can't just take me to my city?" Now it was terrifyingly obvious that this woman was not talking sense. The details of her story are constantly changing. We pulled into Walmart, and she finally gets out of the car. I told her before we went to find an ATM that I need to use the restroom. My plan was to call the police from inside the store, but she followed me into the bathroom. This is where she effectively corners me. I bolt out of there and lean against a barrier. I then said, I have some friends at the police department that can probably help you better than I can. I'm just gonna call them and we can figure this out. Again, at the mention of cops, she starts to really flip out. I kept retaining that the police would help her. She snapped to me that she was going to leave and stormed out of the bathroom. but it wasn't over yet. I waited to make sure she was really gone, but sure enough, not 60 seconds after she left, she came back into the bathroom and started banging on the stall, and said something that scared the life out of me, saying, "Hey, come back to the car with me. I left my beer in your car." I blatantly tell her no. I saw her getting into my car and she had absolutely no beer with her. I waited a good 5 minutes before exiting the bathroom. I immediately found a manager who called the police. Thankfully, I was in a different police jurisdiction from the one I worked in, but I was mortified at how entirely stupid I'd been the whole night. The police officer that responded took my statement and advised me to be more careful in the future. He said that sometimes panhandlers turn violent, and that just recently there had been a report of a woman who matched her description assaulting a Samaritan trying to help her. I definitely learned a lesson on stranger danger. I'm lucky to have come out unscathed. I'm glad that my stupidity didn't kill me. With the recent stories about fake Ubers, I thought I'd share my encounter. Freshman year of college, first semester, I had a chem test coming up, so I started walking to a building on campus, and as I'm walking, I start talking to this girl near me and discovered that she's also in the same class. She told me she's going to some study with some super smart kid and invited me to join. We study in the library for a couple of hours and the kid leaves. She said she's hungry and asked if I wanted to go get some food. At this point I was like, yeah, sure. We go to the Quaboa near campus and eat and study a little more. By midnight, we decide we should probably go home and she wants to get an Uber. Even though we weren't terribly far from our dorms, I call one and we stand outside talking. Soon a car rolls up to us, the window rolls down and the Uber driver calls out, "Hey, I'm your Uber, get in." I started walking towards it, but something didn't seem right. It was a weird white sedan. I was thinking, this guy's car's crap. Moreover, the man was just off-putting. I don't want to stereotype, but he seemed like one of those sketchy dudes on the side of the street type. I pause, and he more aggressively starts telling us to get in the car. I tell the girl to wait, and I open up my Uber app and look at the car description, and it's nowhere near that of the creeps. I tell him, "You're not my Uber," and he starts getting frustrated and keeps telling us that it's him, until a pair of headlights emerged from behind him. Once he saw those, he started laughing like a maniac and suddenly stepped on the gas pedal and zoomed off. We're shaking now. The car behind him stops in front of us and rolls the window down, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go again. I'm sure they're together. I make sure my app's are right and the car description matches. It's the correct Uber. Moral of the story is always make sure you're getting into the right car. You never know what weirdo could be lurking.
Well, listeners, I hope you had an absolute blast. I really love having guest narrators on the show, and I hope you enjoyed Insomniac's narrations. With guest narrators, I love sharing their talent with a range of new people, showcasing the variety of different voice styles that are out there in the narration space, and I get a chance to work with people who love the art as well. It's a win-win. And working with Insomniac was so damn easy. You know, there are some collaboration horror stories out there, pun intended, but this guy is a pro. So if you're enjoying his style, swing on by his YouTube page, subscribe and show him some love. I'll include a link to his channel in the show notes, so it's easy to find him. There's going to be more episodes with Insomniac in the future for sure, so I can't wait till our next collaboration. Folks, have a lovely day or night, and as always, till next we meet.